Hi, my name's Lee Matthews. I'm one of the physiotherapists that work in the pain management department at Queen's Hospital. Today I'm going to guide you through some gentle exercises which are called Pilates, and we're going to do those sat in a chair. So there's 5 things that we try and have as considerations during Pilates. So of these 5 things, the first thing is engaging the core muscles. So during my exercises that I'm going to go through, I want you to just think about gently drawing the tummy muscles back in towards the spine. It's a little bit like a pelvic floor contraction. So I don't stop breathing, but what I'm doing is just gently engaging these muscles around the tummy area. The other thing that we'll also try and maintain throughout the exercises is a nice neutral position with the pelvis. And again, I'll go through that later on. But by keeping that pelvic neutral position, it's actually preserving the natural curve of the spine, and it's also promoting good posture. The third thing that we're going to remain aware of is the position of our shoulders. So by keeping our collarbones nice and wide, by me having my shoulders out nice and wide, it actually keeps us in a nice neutral position with the upper back and the shoulder area as well. So I don't mean a sergeant major position. This isn't about poking my chest out as far as I can. It's a slightly more subtle thing than that. It's a nice gentle wide shoulder position. The fourth thing that goes with that is that lengthening of the neck as well. So sometimes with our normal postures, we can sometimes have a bit of a poking chin. It might be we sit over a desk all day long, or at a computer, or driving a car. And very often we end up in this poor position where our chin is poking forwards. So part of that process of correction is what we've been through a moment ago, correcting our pelvis. Part of it's about having nice wide shoulders, but also have that lengthening from the neck. Imagine you've got a balloon tied to the crown of your head there, drawing you up towards the space above you. And in doing so, we're promoting the natural curves of our spine, of our neck, of our low back, and that actually engages some of those postural muscles as well. The final thing as a consideration is what we're doing with our ribs. So when I do some of the movements of my arms, the temptation is to stretch as far as you can, and in doing so, sometimes we can actually overextend from the rib cage area. So during the movements, I'd actually encourage you to try and move with control in flowing movements. Sometimes it's on an outward breath, but what we'd be looking for is not to overexert from the rib cage area. So I don't want you to kind of end up overarching from here, which we sometimes call flaring from the rib cage. So don't worry too much about all of these things at the moment. If you've never done Pilates before, you might actually start off by just mimicking the movements that I go through. But with practice, it might be you start to think about engaging the core a little bit more. You might start to think about where your positioning is going and making sure that you're refining your technique with time. And hopefully in doing so, not only will it preserve the natural curves of our body, it will promote using some of those postural muscles and hopefully improve our flexibility as well. So have a little go, and hopefully you'll find it's of benefit. So first of all, let's bring ourselves forwards on the chair. My feet are directly underneath where my knees are, and I'm looking for a nice sort of 90-degree angle there. So my knees are directly over the top of my feet, and I'm looking for a gap about hip width distance apart there. When we move up towards the waist, make a small triangle with your hands, pop that in front of your belly button, and what I want you to do for me is to slowly roll back on your sitting bones, on your bottom, so you tilt backwards, and then coming back up into that upright position, and then overextending a bit like a sergeant major. So we're going to tilt backwards and forwards a few times, just a couple, and each time you go forwards and backwards, I want you to just go a little bit less far each time, until hopefully in the end you find that mid position where that triangle is in a nice vertical position, and we know from that we're actually in a nice neutral position. So that bit of Pilates we talked about at the start was about finding that neutral position, and that's one of the ways that we can do that. The other way you can do it is by having your hands underneath your bottom cheeks and feeling for those sitting bones. And they're like the rocker of a rocking chair. So as you rock backwards, we come off of the sitting bones. As we come back into the mid position, we sit on top of them. And again, if you overextend, like that military sort of posture, you go off the front of them. So we're looking for that nice mid position, that soft position. So I tilt backwards and forwards. And then eventually I come to rest in that nice mid position where hopefully the back feels soft and those muscles are just ticking over gently there. So the first exercise we're going to do in this position is just to practice moving our weight around where we're sitting. So let's just first of all lean over to one side and back to the middle and then back to the other side. So just take a moment to think about your weight and your transition of your movement there. So sometimes through habit we can end up sitting more on one side than the other. And we're just starting to get that back warmed up as we move, gently starting to get some of those things moving there. And now let's do some circling. So I'm going to go all the way around one way first of all. I don't mind which direction you pick. So you might do just really small circles to begin with, and that's fine. As you get better, you might be able to do a slightly bigger circle. And again, with any of these things, if you've had enough, then just wait until the next exercise. And it might be you start by just doing a few of these things to begin with and build into the rest of them later. So come to a rest in the middle. And now I want you to do the same in the opposite direction. So all the way around. And again, about 5 in the opposite direction. So we're starting to use those tummy muscles by doing this. We're starting to move the back a little bit. Okay, and back to the middle again. And now let's think about some shoulder rolls. So maybe if you begin on your left shoulder, just take that shoulder and just roll it back a little bit. So I'm going up, I'm over behind me, down, and then back to the start position. So up, back behind me, down, and start position. And the whole time we're obviously trying to keep that nice good posture that we've set out at the start. And now the same on your right shoulder. So up, back, down, into the start position. You could have your hand resting on your lap. You might lift the arm up, I don't mind. And you might well find that one side goes a lot further than the other. So you work to your own individual limitations. But what you'll find is that by moving these things, you might move a lot of muscles in a way they've just not been used to. So you might get some pops and creaks, you might get some soreness to go with that. And when you've done about 5, we'll come to a rest there. So let's think about movement of our neck and our upper back now as well. So I'm going to move all the way over to your right, all the way back again, and then over towards your left. And each time we just hold for a few seconds there. So we've warmed up the upper body and our arms and neck. So let's shift our attention now to our legs. So keeping this good position that we've been using the whole way through, I want you to think about engaging those core muscles, and with your left heel, just try and bring it off of the ground as you engage those core muscles. So you zip up that muscle and you're just going to try and lift your left heel very slightly off of the ground. And then back down again. And then the same on your right. So you hold and maintain and back down again. So we're going to alternate that. I'm going to do a few seconds on one leg, hold and sustain that corset of muscle here. I can't promise you'll get a six-pack from doing these, but what I can say is that these muscles are really important for helping to support our back during our daily activities. And sometimes when we've got wear and tear changes and we've had a pain-related condition, they can get weak, and when they're not doing their job as well, unfortunately that can make our symptoms more apparent. And also it might be that when we do tasks, we notice the pain comes on quite quickly. So by strengthening these muscles, hopefully you'll be able to do things a little bit longer. And it might not get rid of the pain, but actually it might make you have more good days, and that's worth it in my perspective. There we go, and relax. So you can progress that into actually doing like a walking position. So again, I zip up that muscle and I'm doing a brisk ankle pump with this. Gets the calf muscles working, works your ankles, and the whole time we're doing that, we're keeping a good position with the rest of our body. So moving on to the next ankle movement, what we're going to do, we're going to engage the core with your left leg, take the whole foot off the ground this time, and then make a small circle for me. So imagine you've got a paintbrush on your knee almost, you're trying to draw a little circle. Remember which direction you're moving that circle in, and do about 5 of them, and then back down again. And then we'll do the same in the opposite direction. So again, you zip up those tummy muscles, lift that foot off of the ground, and make those circles in the opposite direction. And then back down again. And whatever we do on one side, let's do it on the other. So this time, zip up, and with your right leg, lift that foot off the floor, and again, making some small circles, a little bit like you're drawing with a paintbrush that's tied onto your knee. When you've done about 5, back down and up, and repeat in the opposite direction. So we're working our tummy muscles, we're working some of our hip muscles when we do this as well. And back down and relax. So we can do another one of those on each side. Again, if you're finding that's difficult, then do what you can manage, or it might even be wait until we do the next exercise. So again, I zip up, making some small circles. And back down, and then the same in the opposite direction. And the same again on your right. And now what we're going to do is imagine you've still got that paintbrush, but this time it's stuck between your big toe and your second toe. So keep that nice good posture. We're going to bring the foot up in front of you. So with your left foot first of all, up in front of you, and imagine you're painting a big vertical line in front of you, and then back down again. So I keep myself in a good position, I engage that core muscle, and I'm coming up and down. So it's a flowing movement with so many of these things in Pilates. It's a nice, smooth and hopefully elegant movement there. And when you've done about 5 on one leg, we're going to do 5 on the other. So again, engage the core, and with your right leg all the way up and all the way back down again. So again, if you're starting to feel tired, it might be that you've gone back to rest in the back of the chair with this one, and that's fine. But if you find it's quite easy, then stay perched on the front of the chair, keeping that nice neutral position here as you do that flowing movement going up and down. And again, aiming for about 5 repetitions maybe, and you could always progress that onto 10 if you find it's easy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some movements where we bring the leg out to the side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to engage the muscle, and I bring my leg out to the side and then back in again. So again, engage the muscle, out to the side and back in again. So just trying to promote a bit of movement around the hip really, and then back in again. So you could even try these with a ball under your foot, even potentially. You could try and move the ball out to the side and back in again. And when you've done 5 on one side, same on your left. So again, engaging that core muscle, bring the leg out to the side, and back in again. That's good. And back to our rest position. So we're going to work these muscles on the front of the thigh a little bit more and engage the ankle again. So I'm going to bring my leg up in front of me, so your left leg, and this time I'm going to hold that position. And if you can, let's make those circles this time with the foot. So holding that position there, feel that muscle working on the front of the thigh. So these are important muscles when we're up and about and standing. Done about 5 circles in one direction, and then you could either rest and come back up again or go straight into 5 in the opposite direction. And then back down again. And let's do the same on your other leg. So on your left, bring that leg up in front of you, keeping this good position, and again, making some circles as that muscle carries on working there, and the foot's moving around as your ankle's able to. So we're kind of working our ankle muscles, we're working our thigh muscles, and also working that core. And then either keeping that position or come back down again, have a rest, and go the same in the opposite direction. And then back down again. So back over to your left again, bring the foot up, making some circles. So it might be that you've already had enough with doing these and that you've actually just stopped for today, and that's fine. I think because we're trying to cater to lots of different levels, it might be that some of you start really gentle and then build on that, and that's absolutely fine. But we just want to give people some ideas of things that they can do and progressions that they can do. And then back the other way. So the way that we can make this harder is by doing more repetitions, or you might do more sets of those repetitions. These exercises can also be done on a gym ball as well, potentially. I'd only do them on a gym ball if you've been recommended to do so, and that might be a subject for another video maybe. But we're looking to find these muscles being challenged, and that's the aim of what we're setting out to do today. So let's shift our attention back up to the upper body again. I want you to try and maintain this good position, engage that core, and bring those arms out in front of you. And what we're going to do from this position is imagine you're a waiter with some trays of drinks. So this is called the dumb waiter, this Pilates movement. We're going to engage our core, and then I want you to try and bring those arms so the hands come out to the sides. So imagine you're passing 2 trays of drinks around. Engage those muscles, and then back to the start position again. So it's a really nice one for opening the chest up. So engage, and then back in again. So if you've got a bad arm, it might be that you only go with one arm and the other one just holds that position, and that's fine. You work to your own level of ability. So again, I bring the arms open and I hold and engage that core throughout, and then back to middle again. So if you found that easy, the progression to that would be a position which we call Cleopatra. So I bring my arms out to the side, and then a bit like if you were a really naughty waiter and you wanted to pour those drinks on the floor, you bring the hands out and turn those palms downwards for this one. And again, back to the start position. So out to the side, and then bringing the arms out directly to the sides, and back to. And you keep on going there at your pace. I'm going to do one more. That's good. So now we're going to progress with the reaching up that we did earlier. We previously imagined we held a balloon that was floating off to have a nice gentle stretch here to get things moving. Let's imagine this time you're reaching up really high, having a really good stretch. I feel that opening on the side there. Appreciate that stretch, and then bringing the arm back down again, and the same up with the other side. And again. So the whole time we're doing this, we're drawing those tummy muscles in. So as you reach up with your left arm, feel that nice big stretch, and then back down again, and then the same with your right arm. This is a little bit more of an intense stretch, and you'll feel that in the shoulders, you'll feel it in your spine as well, and in those muscles along the back there. I'm going to do one more on each side, and then we'll bring ourselves back to the start position. That's good. So we're going to do a technique now called the corkscrew. So I bring my arms up to my sides of my ears there, and if you're comfortable with that, you can even bring the elbows out to the side. So it's a bit like a sunbather stretch almost. Again, you might just do it with one arm, and that's fine. And what we're going to do in that position, if you find it's easy, is a little shoulder shrug, and then back to the position with our elbows in front. So again, if you can, bring the elbows out to the side, or even if you just stay with them in front of you, a little shoulder shrug there. We'll just do another couple of those. So again, I find with Pilates it's quite surprising how just very small movements, very subtle movements, can sometimes make you realise that actually we use quite a lot of these muscles with the day-to-day activities without even realising it. And also sometimes those muscles can get a little bit tight, so this is a really good way of getting some strength, some endurance with these muscles, but also improving our flexibility a little bit, and in a kind way hopefully. So we can also progress on the rotation movement we did earlier. If you remember, we twisted round to the side. So what we're going to do now, I want you to imagine that you're holding a bow and arrow in front of you. So this time with your right arm, I want you to try and pull that bowstring back as far as is comfortable. And as you pull back, follow with your nose, and then release that bow and arrow string and back to the start position. So this time with the left arm, pull that bowstring back and look round, follow your hand movement with your nose and release that bow and arrow, and then back to the start position again. So we're going to do 5 on each side if you can tolerate that. So again, with your left hand, and release that bowstring and back to the start. And again. You can imagine you're shooting that bow wherever you want to, but appreciate that movement as you go. So you engage that core muscle, we draw backwards on that outward breath, and then release that bowstring and back to the start. So aim to do around 5 if you can tolerate it, and bring yourself back to the start position at the end of that. So another way we can also open the chest out is if you imagine that you were a book. Imagine that you have your arms out in front of you like the cover of a book, and what we can do, engage in that core muscle, is bring that arm in a flowing movement out to the side and then back in again. So again, you might alternate, you might do 5 on one side and then 5 on the other. But try and make it a nice graceful movement as you engage those tummy muscles. And if you notice, each time I go round, I follow that hand with my nose. So I look round and rotate from the neck as well. And again, aim to do around 5 of those if you can manage it. And then back to the start position. So again, remembering that nice straight spine, the next movement we're going to do is to work our tummy muscles. So what I want you to do for me now, I'm going to keep nice and straight from my back, but I'm going to actually rock back on my sitting bones. So in a Pilates type position, what we do is have the arms up in front of us ideally. So I rock backwards, and you don't need to go very far, before you find your sitting bones are still engaged, but you're working from your tummy there. So it's almost a little bit like a sit-up in the chair, but it's a kind one that works our tummy muscles a little bit, but without having to lay on the floor. So again, if your arms aren't great, you might even just do it with your hands resting on your lap. But notice when I do that, I keep nice and straight from the back. I roll back on my sitting bones, and I feel my tummy muscles working there as I engage. What I'm not doing is just slouching. This is about keeping up nice and tall and rocking back on those sitting bones. And you hold for a few seconds and then back up again. So again, if you aim to do somewhere around the number 5, maybe 10 if you were really good. But see how you find it. And then back to the start position. And what we can also do in this position is adapt to a Pilates move called hundreds. So if I bring my hands down by my sides, and what I'm going to do, if I was on the floor, I'd imagine I was splashing my hands into some puddles maybe. So in seated, it's some really small oscillations with the hands out to the side, and they're quite quick when we do this. And again, it's working those shoulder muscles. And they're called hundreds because you'd aim to do sort of 4 25 burst ones and relax. So you do 4 of those for about 25 repetitions, but again, I think sometimes it's a bit easy to lose count. So we engage our core, and it's a small repeated movement quite quickly as well, and then relax. And we can adapt that and have the palms facing forwards as well. So again, hundreds in seated, but this time with the palm facing forwards. And then relax, and again. So there's lots of little things that we can experiment with and adapt with these techniques. And I think that the key thing is doing it at your level. So we're going to draw our practice to a close by doing some gentle stretches to finish off with. So let's start off with our neck, and again we'll do some gentle movements. If you look over to your left, just hold and sustain on an outward breath. And then the same to the other side. I'm just going to do a couple of each of these. And with those stretches, you aim to hold them for about 5 to 10 seconds. Bringing your chin down towards your chest. And then back up, look into the corner of the room. And again. And let's roll those shoulders a little bit. Release any tension that remains there. Okay, with your left hand, reaching down to the side of the chair and hold that stretch for a moment. And then back up again, and the same to the other side. And again. So there's lots of stretches you can do, but this is just a few that you could do. Let's do a little bit of rotation as well. So I'm going to pop my hand. So if you pop your right hand on your left thigh and just gently rotate round to the side. And then the same to the opposite side. So this time your right hand on the left thigh. That's good. So let's stretch some of our leg muscles as well. First of all, the muscle on the back of the thigh, the hamstrings. If I'm sat on the edge of the chair, if I bring my leg out so the heel's resting on the floor, and what we can do, if we bow forwards, it's a stretch for the muscle on the back of the thigh, which we call the hamstrings. So you could either have the toes pointing towards the ceiling, which is a slightly more intense stretch, or it might be you even leave the feet just pointing out in front of you, which takes some of the strain off of some of the structures in your leg there. And then relax, and then the same on the other side. So again, if you've had a history of back pain with leg pain, you'll often find these structures can be very tight on one side compared to the other. So again, it's nice to stretch these things out, but just in a gentle, controlled way. So again, either with the toes pointing towards the ceiling or out in front of you. And we hold and sustain that for about 10 seconds. And then the same on the other side. So as with all these things, I don't mind pops and creaks, and you might even get a few twinges or some symptoms for a short while, and as long as they're short-lived, as long as you've only got symptoms for a few minutes after doing it, that's fine. But if you find this is making you sore for the rest of the day, then it might be you're trying a little bit too hard with things, and I just encourage you to just start very gently to begin with. So that was our hamstrings. What we'll also do is stretch our calf muscles out. So I'm going to turn my chair the other way around so I can lean on the back of it, and we'll do some stretching for the calf. So I bring my leg out behind me, and for you it might be just a very small stretch. As long as you can feel this stretch in this area here, I bring my hips forwards, and notice that my heels stay in contact with the ground throughout. The other thing people sometimes do is their feet aren't pointing forward, so I want your feet to be nice and parallel to one another, and both heels remain on the ground throughout the exercise. And you should feel that stretch in that calf area. And then, I say, aim for 2 on each side. So bringing ourselves onto our last of the stretches for the legs, we're going to stretch this muscle on the front of the thigh that we call the quads. Now, these muscles can get really tight if we're sat down for longer periods of the day. So if you work at an office or you're mainly sat in the chair, you can actually get really tight with these. And then when we go to stand up, it can actually pull on our spine and put lots of strain there. So having a gentle stretch of these thigh muscles is really useful. You might have seen runners where they pull the ankle up towards the bottom, and that's a really good stretch that they're having there. Now we're going to be a little bit more kind in how we go about this, and so either use a belt or a scarf maybe, or you could even just hold onto your trouser leg. But what I'm looking for you to try and do is to have some support in front of you, so make sure you're holding onto a chair or a table, and we're going to hold the leg up behind us with our arm and keep the knees together and nice and level with the pelvis. So what I don't want you to do is to bend forwards or have the knee up in front of you. To have an effective stretch there, we're keeping our hips slightly forwards there. And I hold and sustain that for, again, about 10 seconds. And then whatever you do on one side, again, try and repeat on the other side. So again, I bring my leg up behind me, I hold that. Again, you find something that's comfortable and find a position where you can feel this stretch on the front of the thigh. And then relax. So a slightly different way of going about that would be to have a chair or a stool maybe. So again, hold on to something nice and secure, and if you bring your leg onto a chair behind you, and you can achieve the same position, but this time instead of using the arm, the chair or the stool is giving you that support, and you can either rest on the toes or on the top of the foot with this one. And again, whatever you've done on one side, always try and repeat the same on the other side. And that brings today's session to a close. So work at a gentle level, work at a pace that's suited to you, and if you find that over time the exercises become a little bit easier, it might be you do a few more repetitions, or you might try a few of the more challenging positions that we've done today. But it's a gentle form of exercise, and hopefully you found it as a kind form of exercise. So start to have a think about things that you found as use there. Maybe you can start to do them a few times a week alongside the stretches that you've been doing. So hope you've enjoyed today, and thanks for joining in.